You work with someone that's smallest mindset. What is the signal that you will say, oh, he or she has potential, he or she will become someone?
That one thing is curiosity. Because everything else can be taught. Come across as a smart person. You don't need the answer. You just need a smart answer.
Oh, there's an upcoming test. I will be referred and I do really good. When I step out of the exam, I forgot everything.
Yeah.
So what is the correct way of learning? So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you actually learn it and remember it?
Because at least my philosophy, and I'm not saying it's the only one, whatever's on my calendar gets done. It works for me, man. I'm not sure if it's great advice, but it definitely works for me. I'll tell you a little secret.
Okay.
And I shouldn't tell secrets on a podcast. But
How would you introduce yourself as a networking event?
how do I introduce myself at a networking event? Wonderful. If it's a professional networking event, I would lead with, I'm a management consultant by the week and a business school faculty by the weekend. That's usually my opening line, my pickup line. If it's a not so professional setting, then I do start or I at least do mention things about some of the endurance sports that I do. So I do a lot of things on the side. So I'm a long distance runner, cyclist, I do mountaineering. So I do a lot of these things, as well as I do theatre. So yeah, if I'm looking for, oh wow, then I start with that.
I see. So there's
Whereas if I'm trying to make an impression related to my work, then I stick to that.
Or actually, I should start having my two introductions. It's like, oh, one, I'm sitting at college, study 7 countries stuff, and then one is like, I did a marathon.
Exactly. There's a professional, slightly boring one, and then there is a wow one.
Yeah, definitely. So right now you are a partner, a learning and development head of EY partner.
Yeah.
So what do you do? What do you do on a daily basis? So what does it mean to be in this position?
Yeah, so as a partner in a strategy consulting firm, Tiger, I solve problems for clients.
So problem.
Right? So on a day-to-day basis, what that means is, a client would come to us. They will say, either from a strategy standpoint, or if they're trying to make a deal or a transaction, they would be having a particular problem statement. Me and my team will then research that problem statement, gather a lot of data, analyze that data, start getting closer to an answer to that problem, right? We have a few prospective solutions that we could think about, but then what we really need to work back with the clients on is how to really solve that problem, not more generically, but in their context.
In their context.
So on a day-to-day basis, I'm solving problems. And as the L&D head, right? So that's my job as a partner. As a L&D head, so Parthenon India is roughly 1,100 employees. As a L&D head, my responsibility is to make sure right from the junior most person in the team, who is typically an undergrad like yourself, just finished college, we call them associate consultants, through to partners, right, which is the entire hierarchy of the company.
Okay.
At what level do people need what kind of training intervention?
Training.
Thinking through that, designing that, executing that with the right set of trainers, etc. That's the other part of what I do.
So basically you are providing them training at every step along the way.
Every step along the way, from associate consultant to senior consultant to manager to senior manager to director to partner, right? If those are all the levels that we have, at each level in consulting, as you can imagine, a different skill set is required.
I see.
How do you learn those skills and how do you grow in your career? That's a part of my job as well.
I see. One thing that I'm always curious about is that why would a CEO, why would a founders go to a consulting firm, go to EY partner? Like, what about the firm that the founders cannot see themselves? They have to go to you.
It's a great question, and one that, my parents used to, when I first became a consultant, they used to ask me all the time, right? Because I was much younger, this is many, many moons ago. They used to keep asking me, who takes advice from you, right?
Yeah.
You yourself don't know anything. Why would they take advice from you, right? I think a couple of reasons, right, Tiger? One is, we bring in a lot of outside-in information, right? Which basically means if there is let's say a telecom company A, right? They're asking us a particular question. We bring in a lot of perspective on telecom company B, C, D, E, F, right? We bring in a lot of perspective to say what does the market do? Not just within a country, but also globally. What are some of the best practices? How do you benchmark companies to tell someone, hey, this is what others are doing, or this is what the market does, right? So one is just our ability to bring in data, information, insights from the market, right? That's probably one reason why companies come to us. And the second is, we have the ability to crunch vast amounts of data
That's a no.
into something far more finite, right? And not that a company's CEO or founder cannot do this themselves, but sometimes they lack the bandwidth, or sometimes they are not able to kind of really see something from 30,000 feet above, right? We bring in that view to say, here is all the data that is relevant to the question you're asking. Let us slice and dice it in a way that it actually answers the question. So I think those two, I would say, are the most important things that we bring to the table.
I see. So basically, you are more like a knowledge source for the founders, for the business. As like if a founder bring in a problem statement, and you will say like, okay, so here's the problem.
Yeah.
And you can look at it in this perspective. From this is what the market do.
Yeah.
And then you guys and then the firm gonna also bring in the statistic, the numbers, and everything.
Exactly. And through very data-driven, hypotheses-based approach, we try and solve the problem.
I see.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when making a decision, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of question that you will have. So in that case, so what should be the best way in order to, like, how should we approach it so that we can make the best decision?
Yeah, through a lot of research. Right? So again, like I said, because we've not seen the future, we rely on a few things, right? One, we do a lot of retrospective analysis to say in the past 10 years, if this has happened, then perhaps the next 3 years, this could happen, right? So that we have better grounding in the prediction we are making, right? Second, we look at markets around us. So I work a lot in India. We will typically look at how did China respond to something like this? Where is Indonesia at, right? So as long as these are like for like examples, we tend to see how other countries have responded. So that gives us a little bit of a sense of, if others have reacted like this, maybe this could happen, right? So there are checks and balances to be able to get more confidence in the answer that we are recommending. Because, no one's seen the future.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would say you probably work with some of the smallest mindset, and you have worked with a lot of undergraduate, and you have seen the growth journey and stuff. So what is the signal about, let's say someone around 20-ish, that you would say, oh, he or she has potential, he or she will become something?
Oh, this is my favorite question so far, Tiger. I think that one thing is curiosity.
Curiosity.
Right? So if a 20-year something says, I'm very curious how somebody builds that business that way, or why would somebody invest in this particular company or grow in that particular country. I'm very curious to find out why. I think that's what we need, right? Because everything else can be taught, Tiger. I can't teach curiosity to someone, right? So if a 20-year-old someone, a college student at Tetter, lacks basic curiosity to both ask the right question, but also be willing to put in the effort to answer that question.
I see.
Right? If you have that combination, I think that's everything, right? Everything else, I feel, once students like yourselves become consultants, we can teach everything else.
I see.
But that curiosity, I can't teach anybody. You either have it or you don't, right?
Yeah, I see. That's true. And you did mention about asking the right question. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, great that you're asking this, because oftentimes, especially young people, Tiger, they feel the pressure of having all the answers, right? That if someone senior or my professor or my boss at work is asking me something, I should always be ready with answers, right? And you therefore take a lot of pressure in always having the right answer. Actually, in consulting especially, sometimes having or asking the right question is far more important than knowing the right answer. Because, that curious mind that we spoke about, that curious mind will uncover many facets of the problem itself before starting to answer it. So I genuinely feel that sometimes to come across as a smart person, you don't need the answer. You just need a smart question.
You just need a smart question. Wow, that's really nice. And let's say for a university student, what advice would you give him or her to make the most out of the time at university?
I'm going to sound very boring and very old and very professor-like,
Yeah.
but there is no substitute for learning.
Learning.
Right?
Okay.
I think the lesser shortcuts you try to take in your learning, because again, I just feel students get caught up in this very vicious cycle of I need to get good grades, right? So let me take subjects where I can get good grades. Let me somehow cut corners, somehow do smart work to get good grades, and that's the objective of college.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So-
I think the objective of college is well and truly to learn, irrespective of did you get great grades or not, right? And it's hard. I think you're all competing with each other. There's relative grading. We were discussing that in class, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So you want to do a one-up on each other all the time, and therefore you focus almost too much on getting the right grade. I would love for universities and students to focus more on the learning, less on the grade, right? So if there's one thing that students can actively, consciously do, is get into the habit of learning and picking up new skills, right? As opposed to cramming something or just focusing on, here's the example, here's the textbook knowledge, let me go and write it in an exam paper. Whether I understood or not, who cares? It gets me a good grade. I don't think that's the right mindset.
So one thing I always observe from myself is that like I say, oh, there's an upcoming test. I will review for it, and I do really good. When I step out the exam, I forgot everything.
Yeah.
So what is the correct way of learning? So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you actually learn it and remember it and apply it in real life?
No, that's great. Unless you understand the application of something, don't consider it learnt. Right?
Okay.
I think the mistake, and we've all been there, Tiger. I mean, I'm sure, like I did an engineering for my undergrad. If you ask me, do I remember most of these things? I probably don't, because I was making very similar mistakes to probably what you described, right?
Yeah.
I was mistaking knowledge for learning. They're not the same things.
Okay.
Knowing something is very different to being able to apply it in the real world, right? You forget things simply because, like you rightly said, right? After the exam, I've forgotten everything.
Yeah.
My whole degree, I've forgotten, frankly. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've forgotten everything about it. Because I made the same mistake that you're talking about. For 4 years, I focused on gaining knowledge, not necessarily where and how will I apply that knowledge in the real world. The minute you shift focus from knowledge to skill, Tiger, and therefore, here's what I learned in class today, here is the application of that. That application is very hard to forget. Knowledge is easy because then there is so much knowledge from everywhere.
Sure.
All forms of social media, all forms of news. There's just so much data, information being thrown at us. If we try to consume all of that as knowledge, it's easy to forget because we're all kind of human, right?
Yes.
But if we start to say, I learned this concept and I also applied this concept in the real workplace or in my project or in my assignment at school, it will be harder to forget.
Okay. Let's say you are learning a concept. Like let's pull out something from, we are learning about HR. So let's say you learn about a concept in HR. So then how can you bring it into real life? How can you do the application so that you can remember this?
Yeah. So from a student point of view, definitely try that in your internships.
Yeah,
a lot of what I have taught you, hopefully, right? You should be able to, whether it's about the whole concept of hiring for skills, right? What skill did they want you to demonstrate in your internship? Are you demonstrating those skills or not? Whether it's about performance management, right? We were just discussing that in class, that what is the format of evaluating an employee's performance? You should be observant around in your own internships as you get into those, right? To say, here was my job description or the roles and responsibilities tasked to me. How did I perform on these, and whether they actually follow some of the templates and checklists that Avantikar was describing in class, right?
Yeah.
So it's very easy to, especially in HR, right? Because HR is everywhere. It is human resources.
Yes.
In every company, you're either an employee or an employer, right? Either way, it's quite natural and normal to be able to see human resource management, whether good or bad is a separate matter. But it's very easy to see what concepts a lot of what we've discussed in class in your everyday life in your internship.
Yes,
Yeah.
true. What does a company, let's say EY, look for from the CV of a student when they step out? Because I would say a lot of the CV is the same. We have the same score. We do the same activity. So how does someone gonna make themselves stand out and
Yeah.
make them interesting enough?
Yeah, sure. And I would answer this question less for EY, more for consulting in general, Tiger. I think consulting looks for what we call, a balanced CV, right?
Balanced CV. Oh.
Which means that, say, there are 3-4 sections in a resume typically. There is the academic section, there is your work internships and work experience, there is positions of responsibility. So have you held a leadership position, student council, head of the consulting club in college, etc., etc. And then finally extracurricular activities, or what you are outside of work or outside of college, right?
Okay.
If typically there are these 4 sections, so first thing we look for, Tiger, is definitely balance between the 4.
Okay.
So you can't be an outstanding student but nothing else.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
You can't be amazing at extracurriculars. I don't know, basketball. You've played for Vietnam, but then your grades are really, really bad, right? So either way, we can't have a great spike in something, but then nothing else, right? So first and foremost, I would say balance between the 4 sections. Second thing that we look for is definitely variety, right? Like we like, in consulting, it's generally preferred if the candidate has done different things, but sustained through. So by different things, I don't mean you've done 7 different certifications from Coursera and this, that and the other. You've done 5 different internships in something. You have played 13 different sports. You do some performing arts. It can't be, it's not, by variety, I don't mean you put in a lot of stuff. But I do want to see a well-rounded personality, right?
Yeah.
Through the inclusion of different things, but things that you are truly passionate about.
Yeah.
And therefore, I will be able to see that if it's hypothetically basketball, oh, Tiger's played basketball all through school and college and continues to do that, right?
I see, yeah.
The minute I see that, I know, one, it's a great, sport in general is my bias, but sport in general I feel is a great teacher because it teaches you strategy, it teaches you leadership, it teaches you teamwork, it teaches you just so many things. But it tells me that you persist, you sustain. When you like something, you do it over and over again and you become better. So we want to see different things, but not just as tick marks. We want to see you grow and improve in those things as well. So that's what I would broadly say. Nothing should be too bad. If some things are very good for you. But look for balance. Look for variety in the resume.
Yes.
Right? And we like leadership. We like the fact that if you were you had a leadership position either in school or in college, or you've done your own kind of startup, you had your own venture. Some of those things we quite appreciate.
One thing that is really new for me is to put extracurricular activity onto the CV, which I was not taught and don't really do it. So why do company interested in the extracurricular activity?
Okay, I'll tell you a little secret.
Okay.
And I shouldn't tell secrets on a podcast. But I actually started reading a CV from the extracurriculars up.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Wow.
Exactly to the point that you made in your first original question, which was, everybody has grades, right? Everybody's gone to the same or similar colleges. So, of course, yes, they've done that. Extracurricular is what, at least for me, and I'm 100% biased, but it gives me a window into the person itself.
I see.
Right?
Oh.
Of course, you've gone to college. Of course, you've got good grades. Of course, you did a few internships. Who doesn't? Right?
Sure, yes.
But not everyone can speak for whether, again, like I said, whether it's books and literary, or it's performing arts, or it's sports, or it's public speaking, or it's, right? Like, who can boast of doing some of these things and doing them really well? That is what, at least, again, for me, I feel it really tells me something about a person. If they've persevered through I don't know, say a dance form, right? And since they were a kid, they've learned a certain dance form. They've really gone ahead and done, lots of stage performances. It tells me something about the person in a way that a grade can't, right?
Definitely.
Or an internship can't, right? It tells me you you have a skill, you have talent. It tells me you are not scared to perform on stage, which in consulting is quite important because we have to keep talking to clients. It's always a stage, right? It tells me you have persevered. You have sustainably done a hobby for 5, 6, 7, 10 years and you continue to do it. So it shows your passion. It does so many things. So extracurriculars, please, if you weren't planning to put Tiger on your resume, please put it.
Yes,
please
definitely.
put it. Also because it's a great icebreaker. The first 2, 3, 5 minutes of an interview, you are nervous. I'm trying to get you to calm down in an interview. How do I get someone to be less nervous when they've just walked into an interview room? It's actually through the extracurriculars.
Wow.
I read that section and I'll just go, oh, so you're into debating. Wonderful. In school, I used to be in debating as well. Tell me what you have done, right? And automatically you are at ease, right? Because now we are talking about a topic, a subject that you actually are good at.
Yeah, true.
Right? So you become less nervous.
Yeah. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. Like, at the end of the day, if the CV and stuff, that's like for a more corporate life. But then, when looking at the extracurricular activity, it's really show who is that he or her. Did.
Absolutely.
And then that's really how the HR can really bind with the applicant.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it makes for good conversation. It makes for a human connect, right? Ultimately, you know,
definitely.
the more we connect, the better we are as a team.
Definitely. Say, how do you prioritize time?
I get this question a lot, right? Both from people within EY, from students, from... I think, again, this is my way of doing it, Tiger. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but for me, it is a lot of discipline in managing my calendar, right? So whether it's dinner with friends or it's a cycling brevet, which basically means you cycle for 200 kilometers, 400 kilometers, 600. I do long distance cycling. Or it's, a marathon that I'm running, or it's a theater audition that I'm supposed to give on a Saturday afternoon. Everything is in my diary, right? So for me, is in my calendar, right? So essentially, things that are important for me, which is all of these things that I just said, right? Apart from work, teaching, theater, sports, fitness, all of this is important for me, right? All of this will be on my calendar because at least my philosophy, and I'm not saying it's the only one, whatever is on my calendar gets done.
Okay. Wow.
Because then I meticulously manage it, track it, fiercely protect my calendar, right? So if I've said Saturday evening, 7 to 9, I want to meet business school friends, I will make sure that happens, right? Sunday morning, I want to go out for a long run with my partner, I will make sure that happens. Does that make sense? So I just essentially follow my calendar to the T.
I really like that concept. Like, if it's on the calendar,
it gets done.
I just get that. Like, I would do anything to get it done.
And I would do anything to get it done.
If I am not planning to get it done, then I would not put it on the calendar. That's a really great way.
Exactly. It works for me, man. I'm not sure if it's great advice, but it definitely works for me.
And what is next for Avantikar?
Oh, wow. This is a therapy session. What is next for Avantikar? I think... well, I'm doing a 1,000-kilometer ride in April.
Okay.
So right now, every quiet moment that I have, I just think about that and I get very scared. The highest I've done is 600 kilometers, so it's a big leap from there. Doing 1,000 takes 3 days and a bit. So that's next on the fitness front. But on the work front, I think. In education as a sector, Tiger, I feel there is still so much potential to, right from early childhood, right? Through to school, through to then entrance exams and test prep, through to higher education, right?
Yeah.
There's just so much potential to, de-textbook education, right?
True.
Because I think, and maybe this is more so in India, less so in some other economies, but I think we are still, back to that original point, right? We are still providing a lot of knowledge, but not necessarily the weapons and not necessarily arming students with the skills, right?
Yeah,
we are still teaching them math and science and history and geography in school. We are still teaching them this business school, we still teach them finance and marketing and HR and strategy.
Yeah.
I think what is needed is, here is a business problem. A business problem does not come with a tag saying, I am a finance problem.
Yeah, true.
I am a marketing problem. Right?
I agree.
So I think what I would love to do in my career is get to a point where, education is a lot more real world done backwards, as opposed to English and math and science and other languages and history and HR and marketing and finance, which is how it is divided. So if it were up to me, I would love to get to a point where right from school education, we focus on skills like critical thinking, problem solving, data analysis, communication, leadership. That's what we want to teach. And everything else is a part of that, as opposed to the other way around.
So,
I don't know. It's a tall dream.
What do you mean by the thing that you say education is to make education from real world backward?
Yeah, so from the real world, so if the real world has a problem of businesses don't know how to remain relevant in the world of AI, right?
Yeah.
If that's a business problem, I think in our postgraduate degrees, undergraduate degrees, we should take that as a problem, work backwards from there and say, now how do we teach economics with that problem in mind? How do we teach economics? How do we teach marketing? How do we teach finance?
Yeah.
Whereas what we're doing is the other way around. We're saying, here is the theory of finance, the theory of HR, the theory of strategy.
Yeah.
And then you figure out how it applies in the real world.
Yeah.
Student, you figure it out, right? I think that doesn't work.
Yeah.
We're doing a disservice sometimes, I feel, to the students.
Yes.
Yeah?
Thank you so much, Avantikar,
worries.
for appearing on the podcast. And yes.
No worries at all. Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
It was a wonderful conversation, Tiger.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.